say that I have come across in my research to some very important documents that show that the Electoral Commissioner's office has been working very hard on this idea, this very concept of voter registration. It has produced documents. It has had workshops on this issue. Now, I have come across certain documents that have eventually been put in the form of representations that have been sent to government. Back in 2014, on the eve of us losing the 2014 elections. And who, therefore, would have been in possession of those remarks of the Office of the Electoral Commission? It would be the government led by Sir Anirudh Jagnat, Pravin Jagnat, Joe Lejonga, Duval, Xavier, all of them were in that government. And what did that document say? Part of those recommendations was precisely drawing attention to the principles that must be adhered to when registering voters and compiling and maintaining a voter's roll. It talked about the importance of the rule of law, integrity, inclusiveness, legitimacy, accuracy. And on the chapter of accuracy, Madam Speaker, it says that the information in the voter's roll must be valid, accurate, and up to date. This is precisely what this government is doing. Ensuring that it is up to date, but not information that is old already. That's why I say it again, a fundamental piece of legislation that ensures that the objective of ensuring accuracy of the voter roll. The system must ensure that ineligible persons are removed from the voter's roll, such as deceased persons. A voter must also only appear once on the national common voters roll, and that is for the voting district in which he or she has registered. Madam Speaker, what did the MSM do when they were in power and in alliance with the PMSD? What did they do? What did they do with the Honorable then Colin Dervelou? What did they do when Honorable Obigadou was there? What did they do when they had those representations, and not once, several times, from the Electoral Commissioner's office? Did they at least pay heed to those observations, that there had to be changes brought to the law in order to ensure that there was a rule of law, integrity, inclusiveness, legitimacy, accuracy, comprehensiveness, accessibility, transparency, security, information, privacy, steps, etc., etc., etc. He just sent representations, but the MSM ignored those representations. But it is this government that has decided to come up, this Prime Minister, this team that has come up with changes to the law in order to ensure that people who would have been forgotten for statutory reasons, but nonsensical in the process, are brought back and caught back and are allowed to vote. Fundamental, historical. But let me come back to reasons why, not only because of the absence of the minister, the leader of the opposition, former minister, the absence of Honorable Duval, the least he should have done. He has spoken, allow me to rebut him. He should have been present. Maybe he was even speaker once upon a time. He does not even know the l'ABC. I call it good manners. Huh? I ignore it. Anyway, but then you see, the then leader of the opposition on the 23rd of May 2023, you see, it brings me back to the previous mandate. The then leader of the opposition, when he was in government, when he was in the opposition, you see, I'm just being confused because he just keeps jumping and changing beds, you know. And what did he say? In his speech, condemning the previous government. And those are the reasons why I'm saying to this House, and I'm saying it for the people outside to listen to what I say. there are the reasons, many reasons, but only here 2 reasons why I say to you, do not listen and do not believe what the opposition are going to blurt out, because they are clearly inconsistent, incompetent, and whatever they say it's not even the truth. Look at what the then leader of the opposition said in his speech in a debate that took place in this August Assembly, number 8 of 2023. He said, I quote, "So for all these reasons, Mr. Speaker, sir, I asked the Vice Prime Minister, I asked the government to withdraw this bill." What bill was it? To postpone election for the 3rd time. Let democracy win, he says. He says, let democracy proceed and let the people choose freely who they want to bring about all those changes that I have suggested. And yes, the people chose freely. The people chose us to bring those changes. The people chose those who are in the right and condemned those who were in the wrong. And this very then leader of the opposition decided to jump in bed with those very people that he criticized to bring against democracy. How could you, in Parliament, say, let democracy win? And what he's saying is that those are the very people who are not for democracy. And you jump in the same bed with them, and you take your team and you jump in with them. Thank God there were those who did not want to follow him in that bed. Some of them are here. And what about the absent leader of the opposition? And I shall conclude on that. You know what he said? And I'll say again, you can't believe him. You should not even believe him. Listen to him. If you wish. But then again, he's not here. How can we hear? What did he say in that very debate? I quote, l'Alliance Ramgoulam-Béranger-Duval, allons le reconnaître, pas mot des autres, j'ai ça. Et écoutez-moi, Monsieur le Président, je vais terminer là-dessus parce que je n'ai pas beaucoup de temps. Tellement il n'a pas de temps, il n'est même pas là. Lors de ces prochaines élections, le peuple mettra un terme définitif à la carrière politique de 2 personnes, surtout l'honorable Paul Béranger et Navin Ramgoulam. Oh my God. If you were wrong then, why do you believe that you're right today? You were wrong then, we were right then. We are right today, you are wrong again, sir. So, when history will judge, it will look in the Hansard and will say, okay, what did the opposition say? Oh, the leader of the opposition, who is supposed to represent those who voted against this government, whom the former Prime Minister Pravin Jagnnath most probably, or somewhere in some kitchen, decided that it should be him. He wasn't here. But how is he going to justify his salary at the end of this month? Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Honourable Dr. Umia, yes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The main objective of this bill that is being presented to the House today is to have a supplementary register of electors, be it for municipal council or city election or any other election. It has its high importance in municipal elections, which has been the bedrock of some parliamentarians, namely, notably, former mayors, Honorable Nagalingam and Honorable Bhagwan, who are now members of the cabinet. We have to know why we have such a bill. The purpose of the bill is to ensure that every elector in this country, eligible elector, has access to the right to vote and have eligible access to the democratic process of the election. We will be learning from lessons of the past because that bill, once passed, will show us that what has happened in the past when electoral voters who were supposed to be on the list did not have a chance to exercise their democratic right, which is a constitutional one, to exert their power. This government does not want anybody to be deprived of that constitutional right to vote. Madam Speaker, the power of a voter should not be underestimated. It is through the stroke of a pen that these voters decide who they want and when they want to send who either to Parliament here or in local government councils. And we do know that the power of the pen, how effective it was in November 2024, unfortunately they are not here, when they have been swept out completely like a tsunami, and they have disappeared, and today they are not even here to listen to what we have to say. That pen is so powerful, and the people of this country know the effect of how they're going to use the pen, that during the November 24 election, there was even concerns that people were buying their own pens because they were concerned there were erasable ones that could be used to sway the course of election. This supplementary list, Madam Speaker, will have names added to it for those who are not on the registered list, for those who will attain the age of 18 by nomination day, and who bona fide fulfill the criteria of an election of electors. Such a bill, therefore, puts our government program at the heart of democracy, of a vibrant democracy, and strengthens our democratic values. If we look at the government program, A Bridge to the Future, it is well clear that government is committed to put on track the very founding principles of our parliamentary democracy. Madam Speaker, I will now come to why I said we should learn from the lessons of the past. In 2019, the alliance that was led by the Labour Party, at its head the current Prime Minister, Dr. Ramgoolam, was tipped to win the general election. And we do all know that afterwards what happened. We lost, various reasons were put forward, various means of explaining and views to say why we did lose, but there was one fundamental cause, an aspect of that loss: figures, the figures of registered electoral members. Let's look briefly at figures. It is well known that within two elections of a 5-year period, particularly when we look between 2009 and 2014, there is a swing of approximately 50 to 60,000 new electors. It's always been that way. But from 2014 to 2019, there was only 4,744 new electors. Where has gone all these new electors? Where did they disappear? Why were they not registered? Who made sure they were not registered? And I'm told that approximately 136,000 people eligible to be registered as voters in 2019 did not have the chance to exercise their right, which make approximately 14.9% of the population who were entitled to vote. And within that 136,000, from people who have gathered the right statistics, 50,000 were disfranchised from the list. Madam Speaker, those people who were disfranchised, be it deliberately because of their allegiance to one particular party, or the intention of votes to sway the votes and against the will of the government in power, or political gerrymandering by some, did make sure that these people did not have a chance to exercise their constitutional right. Unfortunately for them, now will become the opportunity, a golden opportunity whereby every person who felt he has not had the chance to be registered will be able to do so, let alone in this forthcoming local government election, but I'm sure in further elections where on the day of where the writs of election will be issued, they will have the time to do so. Madam Speaker, and when I have said a swing of 50,000 between 2009 and 2014, and then we saw only 4,900. But what happened in 2019? When we look at the registered list, we once again has a swing of new electors of approximately 50,000. Why? Because the population at large in this country had been made aware. They are alert. They are eager. They want to exercise their right. They are fed up with that government. They want to make sure. And they all use the app that their electoral office has, and they ensure that they were on the list. And it was very difficult for those who have absurd political motives to defranchise them. Today, this bill will give to those who are bona fide electors a window of opportunity to engage in the electoral process. Madam Speaker, a famous topic, the deceased. We all have heard how some people have impersonated during time and time during election to vote for those who are no longer here. And in particular, I will quote constituency number 10 in 2019, where it has been said that the dead rose from the burial grounds at early hours of the morning to return in the afternoon after having voted. Unbelievable. These rumors is because they wanted to make sure such deliberate act, petty-minded and cunning strategies, beside the targeted defranchising of electors, were used and orchestrated to ensure that the current Prime Minister did not get elected. And who was at the helm of such uncast strategies? Nobody else but a brutal, aggressive, belligerent, ill-mannered, rough loudspeaker. And who, depending on his whims and fancies, he used the same tactics against the female in this August Assembly, his favorite target being Ms. Joanna Béranger and Shakil Mohamed. Madam Speaker, I cannot be more pleased with such a bill, as nobody will be able to rob the Mauritian elector of his right to vote. I would like to make to the mover of the bill two humble suggestions. I heard Honorable Duval, unfortunately, the way he mentioned it, that the way that electoral lists are being compiled is still archaic. He must remember, le temps a évolué, oui, mais il faut rendre justice à tous ces gens qui, pendant des années depuis notre indépendance, ont fait de ce détail de registre. Et bien sûr, il y aura des améliorations. Mais aller dire que c'est archaïque, c'est vraiment grotesque et mal élevé. Online registration, I'm sure, will be considered within the broader framework of constitutional and electoral reforms. So therefore, my suggestion would be if an online platform by the Office of the Electoral Commission be made for re-registration of those, together with an acknowledgement receipt, which they can be used as proof during the days of election. And secondly, I'm very pertinent on that one, updated the deceased list from the Department of Civil Status must be displayed in each voting room so that there is tangible evidence of those who cannot vote because they are lying peacefully in their burial grounds. Madame la Présidente, pour terminer, les projets de loi de ce gouvernement se succèdent à un rythme accéléré pour donner un nouvel élan à notre chère démocratie, qui fit l'ombre de lui-même pendant ces 5 dernières années. Et certes, il y a une certaine frustration de certains qui croient que les choses ne bougent pas assez vite. Mais il faut savoir que notre establishment est miné par ce que j'appelle, vous me permettez de servir ce mot, par des tchatois, qui font tout pour mettre du bâton dans les roues et faire capoter le changement. Et il est donc très impératif et important qu'un procès de déminage avancé soit fait et ensuite mettre, comme on dirait, the right man in the right place, que ce soit pour les nominations ou autres.
Yeah,
And the right woman as well.
Right person.
As Martin Luther King quotes, I say to you today, my friends, that in spite of the difficulties and frustrations of the moment, I still have a dream. As far as I'm concerned, I have a special dream for a better Mauritius, led by the current Prime Minister and the Deputy Prime Minister. Thank you.
Thank you. Ça faisait exactement 10 minutes. Honorable Bagwan.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. Je ne pourrai ne pas intervenir sur ce projet de loi qui concerne l'administration régionale. Je suis chargé des élections et on parle de toute façon de l'administration régionale, des élections régionales. Ayant été moi-même plus de 10 ans conseiller municipal, maire, à un certain des grands moments où vous étiez vous-même maire de Beaubassin-Rosine. Madame la Présidente, après le discours raté du 4e député correctif de la circonscription numéro 4 de Pauline Montaillon, j'aurais souhaité qu'elle est ici pour lui dire que j'espère que lui et son parti auraient le courage de participer aux élections municipales et de venir rendre des comptes aux citadins après avoir joui du pouvoir dans les mairies pendant autant d'années. Je ne parle pas du leader de l'opposition, lui aussi j'espère que son parti, qui est en hibernation pour le moment, aurait le courage de venir affronter l'électorat des villes où ils ont beaucoup massacré. Madame la Présidente, le 4 mai prochain, le drapeau de la démocratie régionale ne sera plus en BL. Il flottera à nouveau, fièrement, je le dis, dans le ciel mauricien. Le gouvernement du changement, à travers le Premier ministre et le travail d'équipe avec le député Prime Minister et avec les membres de la commission électorale, ont fait un travail exceptionnel. Venir présenter à la population ce projet de loi pour amender la Representation of the People's Act, qui veut envoyer un signal puissant à tous les fossoyeurs potentiels de la démocratie. Madame la Présidente, avec ce projet de loi, la démocratie régionale sera élargie, approfondie et protégée. Et les deux amendements proposés par le Premier ministre vont dans ce sens. L'établissement d'un registre supplémentaire des électeurs pour les prochaines élections des conseils municipaux garantira que chaque électeur éligible a la possibilité de participer au processus électoral et que personne n'est privé de son droit constitutionnel de voter et de se porter candidat. Madame la Présidente, ce sont surtout les jeunes qui viennent de célébrer l'âge de la majorité, qui apporteront du sang neuf à ce corps électoral, et j'espère aussi que de nombreux jeunes brigueront les suffrages. Madame la Présidente, plus qu'une fleur envers la jeunesse. Et cet amendement est surtout un acte de foi de ce gouvernement en faveur de l'engagement de plus de jeunes en politique. Notre société fait face à de nouveaux défis que les générations précédentes n'ont pas pu venir, et l'apport de la jeunesse sera un atout dans la recherche des solutions durables. Madame la Présidente, le dépouillement des votes le jour du scrutin représente définitivement une avancée considérable dans l'organisation des élections libres, transparentes et crédibles. Encore une fois, cet amendement témoigne de notre profonde conviction que la démocratie doit être constamment approfondie et que la participation de la population au processus démocratique doit être encouragée en permanence. Madame la Présidente, la dissolution hier des conseils municipaux par le président de la République marque la fin d'une période sombre pour les collectivités locales. Je suis heureux que le leader de l'opposition soit là. Et la présentation de ce projet de loi inaugure une nouvelle ère pour la démocratie régionale. En effet, Madame la Présidente, nos mairies ont été plongées dans un coma artificiel depuis 2015. Un coma politiquement induit qui correspond à un état de perte de la conscience politique et de la sensibilité humaine et machiavéliquement orchestré par un gouvernement prônant l'autoritarisme. Ce que nous avons vu, ce que nous avons vécu depuis 2015. Il faut se rappeler, Madame la Présidente, que le gouvernement MSM, et avec la complicité du PMSD et les anciens traites du MMM, avait dès le départ affiché ses préférences pour le totalitarisme en amputant unilatéralement le mandat des conseils élus en 2012, de presque la moitié. Des élections municipales anticipées furent organisées en 2015, quelques mois après les élections générales de 2014. Et le MMM avait participé à ces élections. Et ce n'est que 10 ans plus tard que les électrices et les électeurs de nos villes se rendront à nouveau aux urnes. Nous pourrons régler les autres comptes, pas un trac. 10 ans sans élection dans nos villes, permettant à certains élus, Madame la Présidente, sortant, de battre les records de longévité de mandat municipal, mais point de manière démocratique. Les assisés gagnent cash. 10 ans, Madame la Présidente, sans élection dans nos villes, et les citadins ont beaucoup souffert en termes de services. 10 ans prolongés dans un profond coma artificiel parce que les pouvoirs des élus, nous avons connu les pouvoirs des élus locaux. Ces pouvoirs étaient confisqués par des PPS, et nous savons tous le rôle de ces PPS et des gâteaux-maris. Et les ministres, que les mairies furent transformées en succursales. Les mairies étaient transformées en succursales du MSM, avec la complicité de certains. Et ils ont été complices. Cette bande ont été complices de cette confiscation de la démocratie artificielle. Ce coma artificiel, Madame la Présidente, a permis la mise au repos des fonctions démocratiques vitales dans nos mairies, en servant de leur lien avec les communautés de base, en les asfixiant financièrement et administrativement. L'objectif inavoué demeurait cependant le refus et la peur. Ils avaient la peur, madame. Pourquoi n'avaient-ils pas organisé des élections? Ils n'avaient pas organisé d'élections. La peur d'affronter des élections libres et transparentes, et résultat, c'est pour un battre. Cet état végétatif de nos mairies n'a pas été sans conséquences sur la gouvernance et le développement de nos villes. Gestion opaque, transactions douteuses, gaspillage des maigres ressources, tandis que le copinage, en parlons quand même, et le népotisme furent institutionnalisés au détriment de la méritocratie. Pour ceux, Madame la Présidente, comme vous et moi, et comme mon ami Devin Nagal, comme les autres qui sont ici présents, qui ont eu l'occasion de servir leur ville, l'état de délabrement de nos villes, l'insalubrité permanente, les dysfonctionnements chroniques et le vide culturel. À l'époque, les mairies organisaient il y avait le plaza qui était en plein d'ébullition, des manifestations culturelles. Madame la Présidente, et ça fait mal au cœur. N'en parlons plus, Madame la Présidente, sans récuse. Une adjointe au maire de Vacois Phoenix, mais sans les valises. Ça, c'est le dernier exemple. Je ne vais pas entrer dans les détails, tout le monde en sait. Et ça les valises pour qui? Pour qui ça en a? Et comment il y a un cas? Comment ne pas éprouver de la peine, Madame la Présidente, de la tristesse, de la consternation en regardant l'état de la démocratie régionale de nos villes? Voilà où la petitesse d'esprit des politicards orange a conduit nos villes au bord du précipice. Voilà notre bilan. Voilà le résultat de la politique revancharde du MSM contre les habitants de nos villes. Ce n'est pas de votre autres. Madame la Présidente, vous le savez aussi bien que moi, l'administration régionale de notre pays remonte au milieu du XVIIIe siècle, lorsque l'île était encore une colonie française. L'île était alors divisée en 8 quartiers, administrés par les conseils de communes. Pendant la Révolution française, les conseils de communes ont été remplacés par les municipalités, présidées par des maires. Les mairies possèdent une longue et riche histoire que nous avons dignement célébrée en juillet 90, vous-même, moi-même, Jean-Claude Delestrac, alors, d'autres amis, d'autres fanatiques de la démocratie régionale. Nous avions célébré dignement l'organisation du bicentenaire de l'administration régionale à Rosil, en invitant à la participation de tous les mairies, tous les maires, et aussi ceux des conseils de district, parce que c'était un grand événement qui est resté dans les annales des collectivités. Madame la Présidente, quel triste déclin pour la démocratie régionale, la démocratie régionale a connu ses heures de gloire dans le passé. Des grands maires qui ont marqué l'histoire, des grands maires du Parti travailliste, même qui ont marqué l'histoire de ce pays. Madame la Présidente, il faudra commencer par rétablir Une nouvelle. Je suis sûr qu'il y aura un changement, le changement va venir, personne ne va vous parler. Il faudra commencer par rétablir un dialogue permanent entre les mairies et les mandats pour que le développement soit participatif et inclusif. Et nous prenons cet engagement au niveau de notre alliance. Remettre sur les rails et refaire fonctionner la machinerie municipale pour relancer le développement de nos villes et les sortir de cet immobilisme paralysant de ces 10 dernières années. Relancer l'animation sociale, sportive et culturelle pour que nos villes soient à nouveau des espaces de convivialité et de solidarité. D'ailleurs, madame, dans le programme, nous avons dit, nous ne voulons pas des élus frustrés. Nous ne voulons pas qu'il y ait des conseils sans pouvoir. C'est pour cela que mon ami et collègue, l'honorable Bouchi, il travaille sur l'amendement de ce projet de loi. Nous avons invité, il y a un comité ministériel dont je fais partie, l'honorable Nagalium, les autres amis ici présents. Nous avons invité des successions venant de toute la population, que ce soit ville, urbain, rural, parce qu'il faut, et nous travaillons sur cette refonte de l'administration rurale. Et notre ambition n'est plus d'inscrire peut-être dans la Constitution l'existence de l'administration régionale comme c'est en Sud-Afrique, depuis qu'à l'époque, Feu Nelson Mandela était devenu président. Et j'avais participé à cette époque à une première réunion lorsque j'étais ministre des collectivités locales sous le même Premier ministre, le docteur Amboula. Il m'avait envoyé en Sud-Afrique, il m'avait délégué d'aller participer à une réunion, je me rappelle SALGA, South African Local Government Association, pour la mise sur pied de cette organisation. Et j'avais eu l'occasion à l'époque de rencontrer Nelson Mandela et j'avais été partie prenante de l'organisation des réunions de travail pour revoir l'organisation, la mise sur pied de leur association des autorités urbaines. Madame la Présidente, les dernières élections générales ont permis de sauver in extremis le pays de la banqueroute morale et financière. Et maintenant, les élections municipales vont nous permettre de sauver la démocratie et nos villes. Voilà ce que j'avais à dire. Vive les collectivités locales et nous allons participer nous-mêmes, comme nous le faisons au niveau du gouvernement, à une refonte complète de nos villes qui méritent ce changement. Merci, madame.
Merci. Honorable Minister for Youth and Sports.
Madame la Présidente, c'est avec un cœur rempli de fierté que je m'adresse aujourd'hui à cette auguste assemblée. Cœur rempli de fierté quand nous allons voter un amendement historique. Ce sera une pierre angulaire dans l'histoire politique de notre pays. Que faisons-nous aujourd'hui? Nous redonnons ces lettres de noblesse à notre démocratie, aux principes fondamentaux qui sont le pilier de notre Constitution. La démocratie respire à nouveau. Madame la Présidente, nous assistons aujourd'hui à la consolidation des principes fondamentaux de notre démocratie. Non seulement notre gouvernement a rétabli les élections municipales qui auront lieu bientôt, et cela après 10 longues années, mais nous allons encore plus loin en introduisant cet amendement qui permettra à tous les jeunes qui auront atteint leur majorité après août 2024 de s'inscrire sur la liste électorale et même de se présenter comme candidat à ces élections. Le second amendement introduit pour la première fois à Maurice les élections municipales, le dépouillement le même jour, le CMD counting qui constitue une étape vers la modernisation de notre système électoral. En un mot, c'est un pas de géant pour notre démocratie. Madame la Présidente, do you imagine what it says of a government which deprives its citizens of their democratic rights, and this during 10 years? They invented all kinds of pretexts to twice postpone those elections, depriving around 400,000 of our citizens to choose their representatives to administer their cities and towns. La raison de ce renvoi successif était simple. Ils savaient que le peuple en avait marre de leurs magouilles, leurs mensonges, leurs conspirations. Le peuple ne voulait plus supporter leur corruption, leur passe-droit, leur népotisme et favoritisme. Mais surtout le peuple voulait les punir pour les vols commis dans la caisse de l'État. They kept in power the same incompetent and corrupt councillors at the head of our local government, and this for pure political plans aiming at controlling all institutions of the country. Even the then Speaker at that time, members in this House will remember, at that time he refused to admit questions on local administration. Quel a été le résultat, Madame la Présidente? Une catastrophe. Nos villes sont devenues des fantômes, des villes mortes. Nos villes ont perdu leur splendeur, de leur grandeur, fini des activités sportives et des loisirs dignes de ce nom. Voilà le résultat de cette politique de centralisation à l'outrance pratiquée par l'ancien gouvernement. The last government mode of governing was simple. Silence nous peut gouverner. Or better, silence nous peut coquin. Madame la Présidente, cette dernière victoire de 60-0 que le peuple a offerte à ce gouvernement est le résultat, entre autres, des pratiques antidémocratiques de l'ancien gouvernement qui a usé et abusé de ses pouvoirs et prérogatives. Ne pouvant plus gouverner démocratiquement, étant depuis longtemps devenu impopulaire, il s'est comporté comme un vulgaire usurpateur et a tenté de tous les moyens de bâillonner la population. Outre les renvois des élections municipales, il a tenté quelques jours avant le jour du vote d'interdire les réseaux sociaux, moyens privilégiés des jeunes pour s'informer et se divertir. Ce fut le coup de grâce porté à notre démocratie. Et les jeunes ne se sont pas laissés faire. Ils se sont rendus en masse à nos manifestations politiques. Ils ont voté avec rage contre ce gouvernement pourri. Madame la Présidente, allow me to quote M. Shirin Ebadi, the 203 Nobel Peace Prize for a significant and pioneering effort for democracy and human rights. I quote, "If you want to raise a crop for 1 year, plant corn. If you want to raise a crop for decades, plant trees. If you want to raise a crop for centuries, raise men. If you want to plant a crop for eternities, raise democracies." End quote. Furthermore, the Second Amendment introducing the same-day counting is to keep pace with the modernization of our democratic electoral system. All modern democracies start the counting process immediately after the closing of voting centers. Madame la Présidente, permettez-moi d'exprimer encore une fois, en tant que membre de ce gouvernement, et pour toute ma carrière politique, ma profonde reconnaissance au Premier ministre et le vice-premier ministre pour leur passion et leur sagesse dans la gestion des affaires de l'État. Ces amendements à la Representation of People Act sont une nouvelle pierre dans la construction d'une République de Maurice moderne, libre, démocratique et prospère. Madame la Présidente, la valeur de nos autorités locales et de nos conseils municipaux ne sauraient être surestimés. Ils ne sont pas des simples unités administratives. Ils sont les piliers de notre démocratie, les moteurs du développement et les gardiens de nos communautés. N'oublions pas que les administrations locales ont été les berceaux politiques pour de nombreux dirigeants mauriciens qui sont devenus par la suite députés, ministres, premiers ministres et même présidents de la République. Citons Serge Sagar Ramgoulam, Kassamoutim, Rajesh Bhagwan, parmi tant d'autres et qui ont débuté leur carrière politique comme conseiller municipal. Avec la volonté du gouvernement central et des équipes passionnées, des femmes et des hommes d'expérience, de jeunes remplis de la flamme de faire progresser leur ville dans ces nouvelles municipalités, nos villes deviendront plus propres, cela dans tous les sens, et reprendront vie, retrouveront leur gloire et se moderniseront. Continuons donc à investir en notre conseil municipaux et à leur renforcer et à accroître leur capacité à servir le peuple. Car lorsque la démocratie locale prospère, la nation s'épanouira. Madame la Présidente, pour conclure, permettez-moi de faire un souhait. Je souhaite que mon discours aujourd'hui, la Chambre et le peuple de notre République retiendront surtout la volonté de ce gouvernement d'être le facilitateur auprès des municipalités et leur donner tous les moyens pour nettoyer nos villes. Le mot d'ordre est grand nettoyage dans nos villes. Merci, Madame la Présidente.
Merci, Monsieur le ministre de la Sécurité sociale, s'il vous plaît.
Madam Speaker, I know we have a heavy agenda this afternoon, so rest assured, I won't take long. I just want to spell it loud in this House that this bill confirms the democratic fibers of the l'Alliance du Changement programme. I'm standing as spokesperson of Résistance et Alternative to express the deep support of my party to this bill. Madam Speaker, the right to vote is a guaranteed fundamental right in the Constitution of Mauritius, as well as in Article 25 of the Civil and Political Rights Covenant of the United Nations, to which Mauritius is a state party. The Constitution in Section 44 relates to the right to vote at election. It says any person who is registered as an elector in a constituency shall be entitled to vote in such manner as may be prescribed at any election for that constituency, unless he is prohibited from so voting by any law in force in Mauritius. Article 25 of the Civil and Political Rights Covenant of the United Nations stipulates that every citizen shall have the right and opportunity, without unreasonable restrictions, to vote and to be elected at genuine periodic elections. The bill aims at registering new electors in a supplementary register of electors after the issue of the writ of election up to the eve of the nomination day. Previously, registration of electors was confined to a specific yearly calendar and date, which has been described by other members of the Parliament. Every register compiled in a year came into force on the 16th August in that year and shall remain in force until the register that was next compiled comes into force. It was this electoral process which was used irrespective of the date of elections. The bill changes basically the registration process of electors in Mauritius. The bill also ensures fairness, as it guarantees the right of any person to challenge the admission of any electors to the supplementary register of electors it proposes to create. Significantly is the fact that this bill shall apply not only for the coming election of members of the municipal city council or municipal town council, but also specify that this bill opens the doors to be applied for such other election as may be prescribed. This bill, which might appear minor in change, or even rather technical change, in essence is part of, and in a way, complete the very franchise processes started in 1948 when universal suffrage was first introduced in the then colonial Mauritius. The universal suffrage at the time in 1948 was only partial, as the colonial power had the power to nominate non-elected legislative council members, and the right to vote was restricted to only electors who was able to read and write. The 1948 suffrage was enlarged in 1958 to include all citizens to vote, irrespective of literacy criteria. The system of colonial nominees was abolished. In 1976, the universal suffrage was further enlarged to grant the right to vote to citizens aged 18 years instead of 21 years. All the enlargement processes of the universal suffrage was also translated in local government elections and including municipal elections. The recent elections, especially as from 2019 general elections, highlighted a fundamental problem, whereby the system of registration of electors was leading to some form of disenfranchisement of thousands of electors. In addition, the criteria to confine electors' registration to a specific period of time was de facto eliminating otherwise qualified electors from participating in elections. In fact, it was an unreasonable restriction within the meaning of the Article 25 of the Civil and Political Rights Covenant of the United Nations, to which Mauritius is a state party. The present amendment, proposing to start from the coming municipal elections, is addressing the objective disenfranchisement generated by the registration process under the Representation of People's Act. The bill in this House is in reality leaping towards a new form of presumptive inclusion, whereby the legal and electoral system would protect the voting rights of all subjects by default, in this case, by allowing supplementary register to be opened after the issuing of a writ of election. This amendment inaugurates a series of democratic amendments announced in the government program adopted by this Assembly. After consolidating the right to vote of citizens in the election, the next anticipated step would be to make the right to stand candidate in general elections as a fundamental right in the Constitution of Mauritius, without any compulsory community classification. This amendment marks the opening of a new democratic chapter of the Republic of Mauritius. There are moments in history where what appears to be simple are in fact part of a giant historical process. We are in this historical moment. I appeal to all Mauritians to focus on the fundamentals, to support the democratic transformation underway. And with this note, me and my party, Résistance et Alternative, commend this bill to this House. I recommend that all qualifying citizens to rush and register themselves for the coming municipal elections. This government is widening the franchise, while the previous one disenfranchised more than 400,000 citizens living in municipal areas of the vote, of the right to vote. So I again commend this bill to the House. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you so much. Thank you for being well within time. Honourable Lebin.
Yes. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I will say a few words on this very important bill. We have got the Honourable Prime Minister and the Honourable Attorney General. They have very vividly portrayed the importance of this bill. And the Honourable Attorney General went in length with regards to the legal technicalities involved in this bill. But the very fundamental of this bill, Madam Speaker, is the right to vote, which is a constitutional right embedded in Section 44 of our Constitution. And the way this bill has been drafted, Madam Speaker, I wish to salute the officers, the state law officers, yes, the Attorney General's office for this very well-drafted, clear and precise piece of legislation. Madam Speaker, I would concur with the Honourable Minister, Soubron, with regard to the historical moment that we are privileged to have in this very august assembly to debate on this very important piece of legislation. Be it a few clauses that are amending a 1958 legislation, but the importance is of paramount importance to the people of Mauritius. We have heard Honourable Minister Bagwan, Honourable Minister Nagalingam, yourself, Madam Speaker, you were previous mayors of Boba-Saint-Rosil, and today you are honourable ministers in this very august assembly. So giving back the power of the people of the townships of all these 5 towns and the city of Port-Louis to vote in the near future is a big achievement in itself, when we know in this very august assembly how municipal elections were postponed on 3 occasions for no reason. The last one was that they were preparing a very comprehensive piece of legislation, but to no avail. There is no major reforms that they did, and they just postponed because they knew very well that the people were waiting for them, were waiting to give them an electoral correction. And I salute the team of Honourable Minister Wuchit and the interministerial committee that are looking at a comprehensive legislation for the local elections and the local authorities. Madam Speaker, with regard to the right to vote to the youngsters that will turn 18, just one day before the next municipal elections, is a big step towards participative democracy. And we know how the youth of this country participated in bringing the Alliance du Changement in this very august assembly with an overwhelming majority. And today, I'm very sad to see that, well, the honourable leader of the opposition is present, but he has not participated in the debate. Very important piece of legislation. And a lack of decorum from Honourable Adrien Duval. I would not comment on his exposé, because it was most of the time irrelevant to the subject matter of this present bill. But it is unfortunate, lack of decorum, lack of respect to this august assembly, that he is not even present when he has debated on this very bill to listen to the other orators. This is a lack of respect to democracy, Madam Speaker. And Madam Speaker, with regards to the municipal elections in a few weeks' time, I would like here to pay a particular tribute to the Honourable Prime Minister, to the Honourable Deputy Prime Minister, and to the Cabinet of Ministers, that they are walking the talk. Because coming with another amendment to another big piece of legislation, a 1958 piece of legislation, in a very few months is a big step forward to consolidate our democracy. And, Madam Speaker, I was looking at the debates in 1958, whereby several orators at that time, the bill was presented on the 10th of June 1958 by the then Honourable Attorney General, Honourable Lavoie-Pierre. And I found a paragraph that is very interesting from the then Ministerial Secretary to the Treasury, the then Dr. Ramgoolam. And I will conclude with what he said, which is very relevant today itself. And I quote, "Constitutions, I think, sir, should safeguard the interests of the people. May I make bold to say that it preserves, to my mind, the rights and privileges of every citizen. Every citizen henceforth will have the same right in law, in practice, and in other ways. I think that it is a good thing. I do not think that anyone today can argue that universal suffrage is not right, that universal suffrage is not practicable because a man or a woman cannot read or write. I think that idea has now been exploded." This is what the then Dr. Ramgoolam, father of the nation, said in the debate on the 17th of June 1958, which, to my humble opinion, is very relevant with regards to preserving and consolidating our democracy. That's why I congratulate the Honourable Prime Minister and the Honourable Attorney General for bringing this bill to the House, and I thank you all for your kind attention.
Thank you, Honourable Junior Minister.
Merci Madame la Présidente. Je vais aller directement au projet de loi proposé, l'amendement au projet de loi, et ne pas répéter ce que les autres orateurs avant moi ont dit pour gagner du temps, mais je ne peux m'empêcher, en pensant aux notes que j'ai lues du professeur Jocelyn Chanlao, l'histoire politique de Maurice, être d'accord avec les deux orateurs avant moi que nous vivons un moment historique. Un moment historique parce que ce qui pourrait sembler être une petite formalité vient compléter effectivement l'exercice de suffrage universel, puisque nous allons bientôt aux élections municipales et il y aurait eu des jeunes, beaucoup de personnes qui n'auraient pas eu ce droit de vote. Donc je salue ce travail abattu, la proposition des dirigeants de ce gouvernement, le Premier ministre, le Deputy Prime Minister et tous les partenaires de l'Alliance, le gouvernement dont je fais partie. Je suis heureux de faire partie de cet exercice démocratique que nous vivons en ce moment. Je crois que l'histoire retiendra la date du 19 mars 2025 comme l'accomplissement, l'aboutissement du vote universel. Vous savez, il y a beaucoup de choses, même si ça semble être, pour reprendre les mots de l'honorable Duval, être à compte-gouttes. Ce n'est pas à compte-gouttes. Quand on retire l'homme de l'eau qui était en train de se noyer, il faut également retirer l'eau de l'homme, puisque c'est encore plus douloureux que de le retirer de l'eau. Ce bateau était déjà rempli d'eau. Maintenant, à chaque fois que nous avançons, nous voyons qu'il faut retirer de l'eau. Mais je suis reconnaissant au chef du gouvernement qui, à part de retirer l'eau du navire, revient aussi approfondir la démocratie promise dans le programme gouvernemental. Je vais prendre une citation de Jacques Derrida, « Être démocrate, même si souvent on voit que le verre est à moitié vide, être démocrate, ce serait agir en reconnaissant que nous ne vivons pas dans une société assez démocratique. Et c'est ce qui nous fait pousser nos limites pour amener encore un peu plus de démocratie. Je prends note que cet amendement amène avant tout un registre complémentaire qui donne l'occasion à tous ceux, je crois que c'était le 16 août et non juin, comme mentionné par l'honorable Duval, tous ceux pas inscrits sur un registre au 15 août de 2024, la possibilité de voter pour les municipales qui arrivent bientôt. Je reprends également ce que dit l'amendement, que ce projet ne concerne pas que les élections municipales. C'est pour ça que c'est encore plus important, cet exercice qui nous amène aujourd'hui à ce projet de loi. Ça concernera toutes les élections. Et je profite pour saluer dans l'histoire tous ceux qui ont combattu pour la démocratie, dont le MMM en 82, qui avait voté la loi pour que les élections législatives ne soient pas renvoyées.
nous arrivons maintenant à d'autres projets de loi pour amener cet approfondissement de notre démocratie. Ce registre complémentaire, la démocratie ne marche pas tout seul. Ce n'est pas que le travail du gouvernement, c'est le travail de la société civile, le travail des médias, le travail de tout un chacun, de faire en sorte que la population comprenne qu'ils n'ont que 5 jours, une fois le rite proclamé, pour se faire enregistrer, puisque ces batailles, ces luttes et ces combats, des fois, a pris du sang dans l'histoire pour nous donner notre droit de vote, mentionné par l'honorable Soubron et l'honorable Lobine. Ce droit de vote dont nous parlons aujourd'hui, il faut que la population puisse comprendre l'importance de ce combat pour qu'il puisse se faire enregistrer. Et je salue, j'ai entendu l'Attorney General parler que les bureaux seront ouverts samedi, dimanche, pour donner l'occasion à tout le monde de se faire enregistrer. Vous savez, quand on prend le droit de 400 000 électeurs des villes pendant 10 ans, je suis dans la circonscription numéro 19, Stanley-Rosil, et je connais le problème, la problématique des citadins tous les jours. Quand nous comprenons la gestion d'une municipalité, d'une ville, connaissant le souci, les problèmes que connaissent les gens dans les villes, prendre ce droit équivaut à ce que le gouvernement précédent ne savait pas ce qui se passait dans les villes, où il n'avait aucun souci des gens des villes, ou peut-être des deux. Donc, je trouve inconcevable que le régime précédent ait voté des lois pour repousser 3 fois les élections municipales. 400 000 personnes privées de leurs droits constitutionnels pendant 10 ans. Et je suis reconnaissant de voir que ce gouvernement a à cœur le droit fondamental, constitutionnel des gens. Vous savez, ce n'est pas qu'un approfondissement de la démocratie. C'est une leçon de bon sens. Et je suis tout à fait d'accord de la façon que ce projet a été rédigé, et je salue le travail de l'Attorney General également et de tous les techniciens, puisqu'il y a aussi la manière de faire. Je prends note que quelqu'un peut contester un nom qui est inscrit sur le registre électoral et que l'officier doit obligatoirement informer la personne dont une correction est faite à son nom. Donc la manière de faire, ce n'est pas juste la loi, mais c'est la façon de faire aussi qui nous amène à la façon de gouverner. La façon de gouverner, vous savez, le Premier ministre, en ouvrant les débats, a parlé de suppression de la liste électorale ou les gouvernements qui ont repoussé les élections. Pourquoi est-ce que vous enlèverez les noms d'une liste électorale? J'ai été témoin dans 3 circonscriptions où j'ai travaillé, dans la circonscription Savane-Rivière-Noire, Belle-Rose, 4 bornes et maintenant Stanley-Rosil. À chaque fois, le traumatisme connu par les agents, par même les électeurs dont les noms n'étaient pas inscrits, ils n'avaient aucun recours. Aujourd'hui, grâce à cette loi, à l'amendement à cette loi, les électeurs ont la possibilité de se faire inscrire. Où nous savons que les noms étaient mal inscrits, des fois volontairement. Donc, ce qui leur donnait aucun moyen et aucun recours pour amener leur devoir électoral. Aujourd'hui, nous avons devant nous un exercice qui redonne à la République de Maurice ses lettres de noblesse. Vous avez un gouvernement qui n'est pas dans les calculs politiques, qui amène la démocratie avec lourd de sens. Une démocratie qui ne calcule pas qui c'est qui va voter, où est-ce qu'il va voter, combien d'électeurs doivent être enlevés de la liste, quel découpage doit être fait. Vous avez un gouvernement aujourd'hui qui a vraiment à cœur, quand vous voyez tous les amendements, le premier aujourd'hui, il y en aura d'autres, promis par l'Attorney General et le Premier ministre. Nous savons qu'aujourd'hui, nous avons un gouvernement qui n'amène pas le traumatisme à la population. Je vais terminer pour rappeler à tout le monde, aux dernières élections, ce qui s'est passé quand un trauma a saisi la population, se rappelant de ce qui s'était passé en 2019. 2019, quand les bulletins disparaissaient, quand les boîtes disparaissaient, quand les camions étaient truqués, tout était truqué. Et nous avons tous vécu, tous les candidats ici dans l'hémicycle, le trauma causé, que ce soit la veille des élections, que ce soit le jour des élections ou que ce soit le jour du dépouillement. Nous ne voulons pas revivre ce trauma. La population ne veut pas revivre ce trauma. J'ai été témoin où une foule entassée près des écoles qui empêchait les camions de sortir, fouillait les policiers, leurs sacs. Maurice ne veut pas revivre ça. Et je suis reconnaissant à ce gouvernement, reconnaissant à cette équipe de démocrates qui amènent un vrai sens démocratique à notre République. Merci, Madame la Présidente.
Merci. Honorable Mouchet, please.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for the opportunity to address the representation of the People Amendment Bill number 4 of 2025. A significant legislation reform aimed at strengthening our democracy by making the electoral process more inclusive and accessible to our electoral system. This bill introduces a supplementary register of electors, allowing individuals who missed the initial registration deadline to still exercise their right to vote. By removing barriers that hinder voter participation, it upholds the principles of fairness, democracy, and inclusion. Recognizing the challenges many citizens face in meeting the official deadline, this amendment establishes a mechanism for supplementary registration after the issuance of election writ, ensuring that no eligible voter is excluded and reinforcing our commitment to an open and participatory democracy. Now, why is the need of electoral modernization? Madam Speaker, a modernized and inclusive electoral system is a backbone of any strong democracy. A robust electoral process ensures that every citizen's voice is heard and that our government truly reflects the will of our people. However, outdated procedures, bureaucratic inefficiencies, and unnecessary delays erode public trust in governance. As it stands, the Representation of the People Act requires a register of electors be compiled annually, becoming valid on 16 August, and the remaining in force until the next update in the following year. This rigid time frame creates a major flaws. Citizens who attain the age of 18 after this date or who fail to register within the initial period are barred from voting in elections held within that year. This exclusionary system is particularly problematic for the municipal city council and municipal town council elections scheduled for May 2025. Madam Speaker, under the present framework, voter eligibility is based solely on the National Assembly election 2024 register, valid from 16 August 2024 to 15 August 2025. This means that any newly eligible voter who turned 18 after 15 August 2024 will not be able to vote. Any unregistered but eligible voter will also be barred from participating. This unfairly deprives thousands of citizens, violating the principle of equal representation and universal suffrage. This problem is further compounded by the repeated postponement of municipal elections, last held in June 2015 and originally due in June 2021. These elections were postponed 3 times. First in June 2021 under the pretext of COVID-19, then again in June 2022 without valid justification, and finally in June 2023 through amendment of the Local Government Act enacted without transparency or proper consultation. Madam Speaker, this unprecedented move bypassed the democratic process, depriving citizens of their fundamental right to elect their local representatives. Recognizing this failure, our Prime Minister, Dr. Navin Chandra Ramgoolam, has taken decisive steps to restore faith in democracy by ensuring that the municipal council elections proceed in May 2025 without further delay. On a parallel line, an inter-ministerial committee and a technical committee has been established to oversee the necessary reform. Additionally, citizens have been invited to submit their views on electoral improvements by 31st March 2025, reaffirming our commitment to participatory governance and democratic engagement. Madam Speaker, the representation of the People Amendment Bill directly addresses these systemic flaws by introducing a supplementary register of electors for the municipal and town council elections of 2025, and the key provisions include, first, creation of a supplementary register of electors. This register will be compiled immediately after election writ are issued. It allows individuals who missed the initial registration deadline a second chance to register. Ensures that no voter is denied their constitutional rights due to the rigid administrative deadlines. Second, strict eligibility criteria. Only unregistered eligible voters may apply. Applicants must meet all legal voting requirements, including citizenship, residency, and age. Voters must be 18 years old by nomination day and submit valid proof of residence. Third, public scrutiny and verifications. The supplementary register will be published and available for inspection at the Office of Electoral Commissioner at least one day before nomination day. Citizens will have the right to verify their details and raise objections if necessary. Fourth, prevention of electoral fraud. Duplicate registration will not be permitted. The Electoral Commissioner will oversee a rigorous verification process to maintain electoral integrity. Fifth, oversight by electoral authorities. The Electoral Commissioner will have the authority to verify and process claims fairly. Fraudulent registration will be punishable by fine up to 10,000 rupees or imprisonment up to 1 year. Madam Speaker, this proposal has been reviewed and endorsed by the Electoral Commissioner, who has welcomed the measure as a progressive step towards greater voter participation and integration. The Electoral Supervisory Commission, which has raised no objection and has encouraged further discussion on enabling Mauritians expatriates to vote by proxy. Furthermore, consultations are underway with the Office of the Electoral Commissioner for same-day vote counting in the coming election, an initiative aimed at enhancing transparency, efficiency, and public confidence. Madam Speaker, this bill is not just about voter registration. It is about strengthening our democracy. It will increase voter turnout, ensuring a more representative government, restore faith in democratic institutions after years of electoral uncertainty, empower young voters, ensuring first-time voters are not excluded due to bureaucratic delays, enhance public trust, making elections more transparent, fair, and inclusive. While concern may arise regarding potential administrative challenges, the government has implemented strong safeguards to mitigate risks, and these include a strict verification process to prevent fraudulent registration, transparency mechanism with independent observers overseeing the process, public awareness campaigns to educate citizens on registration process. Madam Speaker, before I conclude, I wish to inform the House, democracy is more than just election. It is about ensuring that every eligible citizen has a fair and equal opportunity to shape the future of our nation. The representation of the People Amendment Bill is a bold and necessary step forward and towards securing this fundamental right. It reaffirms that no voice should be silenced, no right denied, and no citizens excluded from the democratic process. I extend my sincere appreciation to the Prime Minister, Dr. Navin Chandramulam, for his visionary leadership in advancing this initiative, not for momentary recognition, but to strengthen our democracy by fostering a fair, inclusive, and transparent electoral system that upholds the fundamental principle of representation and integrity. Let us work together to strengthen our electoral system, ensuring it reflects the true will of the people and serves as a lasting legacy of justice and participation. Madam Speaker, I thank you for your attention.
Yes, Honourable Minister of Labour.
Madam Speaker, the bill concerns compilation of a supplementary register of electors for the forthcoming city and town council elections. So there was an urgency. When I listened to the Honourable Fourth Member for Constituency number 4, who is not here, he tells us why we're coming with piecemeal amendments. The reason is urgency. We have an election for city council and town council, and now we are amending the law to allow those who had been disenfranchised and those youngsters who have not been able to register themselves to register so that they can participate in this election. Of course, we will come later on after consultation with amendments, because it is in our program. We are going to have electoral amendments. We are going to review the electoral systems. And we'll do it after consultation. But right now, there was an urgency. And it is important, Madam Speaker, to note that whereas Section 41, subsection 3 of the Constitution requires the Electoral Supervisory Commission and the Electoral Commissioner to be consulted before we bring any bill before this House, which relates to registration of electors. In our case, even before the bill was circulated, after the Electoral Commissioner heard the Prime Minister announce that we're going to dissolve the town and municipal council after celebration of Independence Day to come with the elections, he wrote to government. And he told the government, now that you're going to bring elections, now is the time. Amend the law to permit registration of those who had been disenfranchised and those who turned 18 after the 15th of August. And why did the Electoral Commissioner do that? Because we have had a number of meetings since the last election of 2019. And the Honourable Fourth Member for Constituency number 4 is correct. There was a letter dated 24th April 2023, signed by the Honourable Prime Minister, who was then only Dr. Ramgoulam, Paul Béranger, and Xavier Gilral. I was privileged to form part of the team that drafted those proposals. And those proposals relate to improving the registration process of electors, the voting and counting process. So not just the registration. There were 26 proposals. Today we're applying only one of those 26 proposals. So we still have time, and we will come, and we will make the appropriate amendments. The Electoral Commissioner and his office received us several times, explained to us. We worked together, we tried to find a solution. But the major stumbling block was change in legislative provisions. We could not extend the registration. We could not come with a supplementary register of electors without legislative changes. And in front of us, we had the MSN, and they were totally reluctant to bring any amendment to the law. This is the truth. And today, Honorable Duval is sitting next to the MSN, the same MSN who refused to bring any legislative change to permit disenfranchised voters to vote at the elections. Madam Speaker, there has always been complaints by people who did not vote, who could not vote. They turned up to the polling station and their name was not on the list. But what happened in 2019 was unprecedented. Unprecedented. We had officially, I'm talking about the official figures published by the Electoral Commissioner, 6,813 people turned out to vote. People who are usually entitled to vote, who usually vote, whether it is for general election or municipal election, they're used to vote. They went there, their names were simply erased. They didn't have their name there. And that had an outcry. Because 6,813 people, if they were allowed to vote, they could have made a difference. I'll give you some figures, official figures, Madam Speaker. Election of 2019, constituency number 1. The difference between the 4th member and the 3rd member was 47 votes. And 550 people complained, they turned out and they were not allowed to vote. Constituency number 15, the difference between the 4th and the 3rd was 49 votes. And 486 people turned out and was not allowed to vote. Constituency number 16, where Honorable Anctil is there. There was only 25 votes between Honorable Anctil and the 3rd elected member. And 500 people turned out to vote and were not allowed to vote. Constituency number 19, 443 people were not allowed to vote, and the difference was only 80. So you can see, Madam Speaker, if people who usually vote, were allowed to vote, we may have had a different result in 2019. This is why it was very important for the leaders of the parties in the opposition to come together and meet the Electoral Commissioner and come with proposal, because we could not continue with this disenfranchisement. And today what we're doing is truly historical, because today we're giving a chance to everyone whose name is not on the list, which has already been published, who did not make any complaint in the month of May, which they could have done. Today we're giving all these people, not just those who turn out 18, but even those whose name are not on the register, to go after the writ has been issued, to register themselves for 5 days. Why only 5 days? The Honorable Attorney General has explained very clearly. The reason is because we have to work backwards. There's only 15 days between the day of writ and the day of nomination. The minimum is 15 days. So you have to make concession for people who are going to object, the hearing of the objection, the determination of the objection, and the publication of the updated register. So that's why we could only give 5 days. But of course, as he has carefully explained, the Electoral Commissioner has taken all the necessary precautions to make sure that the electoral centers the registration centers would be open even during weekend for people to be able to go and register themselves if their name is not on the list. Madam Speaker, the Honorable Prime Minister also talked about the counting on the same day. Again, we had extensive meetings, Honorable Béranger, Honorable Ramgoulam, myself, and other members of the MMN, and even Nouveau Démocrate was with us, Honorable Lobin. Before the election, general election, we wanted same-day counting. And we came with proposal. We didn't want the ballot boxes to move from the polling station. Unfortunately, for practical reasons, and also because in order to give effect to same-day counting for general election, we needed to amend the law through regulation. But it is the president who makes a regulation. It is the president acting on advice of cabinet to do so. We did not control government. Now that we're in government, now we're able to pass the necessary regulation to ensure first day, that same-day counting is a reality, at least for now, for the municipal and town election. But of course, this is still work in progress, Madam Speaker. As I said, we had 26 proposals. We still have time to hold consultation, and we will come with amendments. For example, we will have, that was one of the suggestions that we made and was accepted by the Electoral Commissioner, we will have to have a system of continuous registration. At the moment, you know, there's candidates who come for a few months per year, and then the list is computed in May, you object or you don't object, and then it is finalized in August. So we have to have a system where you can have registration all year round. You should not have a cut-off date. And also, and I agree with Honourable Omir, it will have to be digitalized. We need to have online registration. Of course, you have to provide all the necessary proof of address, the identity, everything, but then it will be online because it's going to save time, and you will also avoid what the Honourable Prime Minister mentioned about candidates who come, they say they didn't see you, they came back and say again they didn't see you, but we don't know if they were lying or not. But if you have a system of online registration, everybody will be able to have their name and will be able to exercise their fundamental right to choose a representative of their choice. Madam Speaker, as I said, disenfranchisement is not new. It was already referred by Albi Sachs in his report more than 20 years ago, but history will have it that it is this government, led by the Honourable Prime Minister and the Deputy Prime Minister, who came with the appropriate legislative changes to allow every citizen of this country to vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Honourable Minister of Agriculture.
Madame Speaker, the Alliance du Changement, under the luminary leadership of Dr. Navin Ramgoolam, is the voice of the people. With Paul Raymond Béranger, dignified leader of the MMM, of our political landscape, together with our friends from Résistance Alternative and Nouvelle Démocrate, this alliance is the powerhouse of democracy. The bill moves the democratic process, and the key word is inclusivity. No voter is left behind. It is an amazing feat of democracy. The Attorney General is right to state emphatically the amendments to the Representation of People Act is a landmark legislation. It is a reform which is prominent in the government program of 2025-2029. The right to vote being extended to 400,000 eligible voters, and the circle of opportunities has been widened to all qualified unregistered voters. Yesterday, the President of the Republic, acting on the advice of the Prime Minister, under Section 10(3)(a) of the Local Government Act, issued proclamation for dissolution of municipal council. Tomorrow, he will give his assent and the bill will be gazetted. Democracy has no price, and it is of an essence. The opposition, Madam Speaker, has been caught with pants down and has blurted almost anything. I do not know of any voter who would be against the amendment to the Representation of the People's Act. The Attorney General has thoroughly explained the merits of the amendment. The relevance of the supplementary register will be extended to other elections by way of regulations. Madam Speaker, the MSM councillors are all out. Flat out, total exit. They have left a mess. The forthcoming municipal election will be an opportunity now to redress the situation with dignified, effective, meaningful, and transparent leadership at local government. Be it local or central government, Madam Speaker, the management was the fantasy, was the politics of fantasy, corruption, lies, and fake news. It's good to recall we made provision for at least one person of opposite sex to stand as a candidate in every ward. Of course, Prime Minister and Deputy Prime Minister gave firm commitment in International Women's Day celebration for fair representation at the next general election. The bill may be halfway home in anticipation of a comprehensive legislation on electoral reform. May I remind the House, the MSM regime deliberately denied the voters of the municipal city council and municipal town council their legitimate rights. Under false pretenses, elections were postponed till the decadent, filthy, corrupt regime was wiped out. It's good to recall that since 2015 to 2023, the then Vice Prime Minister and Minister of Local Government brought the Local Government Act to the House to be amended 4 times. It was a cowardice act, the fear of being trounced at the polls, and it had nothing to do with pandemic COVID. Besides, borders were reopened to commercial flights in July 2021. Village councils were held on the 22nd of November 2020. Rodrigue had held its regional elections, Rodrigue Regional Assembly elections on the 27th of February 2022 as scheduled despite fair or foul weather. In 2023, the regime came with a certificate of emergency to amend the Local Government Act so as to empower the President, acting in accordance with the advice of the Prime Minister, to further extend the lives of the entire municipal city council and the municipal town council or the entire village council for another 2 years. There is a constitutional underpinning to the Local Government Act since there is provision for fair representation of women in every ward. This bill is a great stride. Prime Minister is moving amendments to the Representation of People's Act to enfranchise all eligible and qualified voters for the forthcoming municipal election. Counting will be held on the same day in the voting centre, and as Prime Minister has stated, it can be done by way of regulation. Ballot boxes will not be transported. Doubt of tampering will be eliminated. Clarity, certainty, rights and obligations are being fulfilled. The Electoral Commissioner has given firm assurances. It is a reaffirmation of our commitment to democracy, inclusivity, and fairness. Under the current electoral framework, many eligible citizens who turned 18 after the 15th of August have been unjustly deprived of this right to administrative cut-off date. Many eligible voters are unaware of registration procedures and deadlines. The amendments assume people will take the initiative. Government will have to conduct a nationwide voter education campaign, that is SMS, email notification to alert eligible voters about registration deadlines. Collaboration with schools and universities to register students turning 18 since a very long time. For the first time, I must say, it's a real empowerment of young voters. We have to make sure that mobile registration units be set up to reach a vast majority. Madam Speaker, there will be 2 registers that have been stated. I won't go over it, but let me make it quite clear that there is a sizable percentage of the electorate who feel more convenient and comfortable to make online application. And we're told that provisions will be made to ensure that there will be online application to be registered as a voter. Our economy is service-oriented to a large extent, and the supplementary register should be the gateway to comprehensive register, and it will come as and when required. Madam Speaker, who has not complained to the Electoral Commission that the canvasser has failed to act diligently because of omission over registration. And the classical reply is the eligible voter is not at home. People travel, and there should be no reason for omission. The loopholes are being plugged to avoid flimsy arguments for non-registration. Madam Speaker, let me remind the House, there are many who don't have the means and acumen to make the online application as and when it will be done. But it was Mr. Suivez Lala, then acting deputy to the Electoral Commission, who advised the Prime Minister, who advised the Premier, Sir Suivez Rambulam, that door-to-door canvassing for registration should stay forever. It was said 2 years prior to 1967 general election. A note of caution, Madam Speaker, and warning to those who want to manipulate the system to register illegal voters. The penalty is clearly spelled out in Section 39D4A. The provisions are clear and the penalty is heavy. As responsible voters and citizens, those who deliberately want to follow the process should and would be denounced. Madam Speaker, we are yet to be told by the Electoral Commission if voting will start at 7 a.m. and would be over at 5 or 6 p.m. It's good to recall that the last hour of canvassing can make the difference, and it is still in the psyche of many voters that the door of voting centres close at 6 p.m. Let me conclude by saying, Madam Speaker, we have travelled a long way. And we've travelled a long way to consolidate democracy. We've travelled a long way to enfranchise those who are eligible to vote but are not on the register. This is democracy, and the process of democracy is being moved because it's a government well entrenched in a democratic process. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Deputy Prime Minister.
Madame Speaker, aujourd'hui, nous allons voter ce texte de loi très important. Nous allons voter ce texte de loi en first, second et third reading, en première, seconde et troisième lecture, ce qui n'est pas la pratique démocratique normale. Mais ceci dit, si nous ne le faisons pas, un certain nombre de jeunes de 18 ans n'auront pas le droit de voter, ne pourront pas voter aux élections municipales du 4 mai prochain et ne pourraient pas non plus être candidats à ces élections municipales. Et cela parce que la façon dont l'exercice d'enregistrement des électrices et des électeurs se déroule sous la loi actuelle. En effet, comme a été dit, comme a été expliqué avant moi, chaque année, une nouvelle liste d'électeurs et d'électrices entre en vigueur le 16 août, après que tous ceux qui y ont droit se sont enregistrés. Et tous ceux qui ont 18 ans à cette date, qui ont désiré être enregistrés, qui ont voulu être enregistrés, ont un droit de vote. Mais ceux qui ont 18 ans entre cette date et la date d'entrée en question l'année suivante d'une nouvelle liste d'électeurs et d'électrices ne peuvent ni voter ni se porter candidat. C'est cela la vérité. C'est cela pourquoi nous agissons d'urgence aujourd'hui et que nous allons voter la conscience claire, ce texte de loi en première, deuxième et troisième lecture. C'est d'ailleurs ainsi qu'aux dernières élections générales, 1205 électeurs et électrices des villes ayant atteint l'âge de 18 ans après le 15 août 2024 n'ont pu voter ou se porter candidat. D'où donc le Supplementary Register que cette loi permettra au commissaire électoral de dresser avant
les prochaines élections municipales du 4 mai 2025. 2025, hein?
Oui.
Si cette loi n'est pas votée, je le répète, Madame Speaker, si cette loi n'est pas votée en première, deuxième et third lecture, aujourd'hui, de deux choses. Soit quelques 1200 jeunes électeurs et électrices ayant 18 ans n'auront pas le droit de voter ou d'être candidats, soit nous aurions à retarder de quelques jours ou de même quelques semaines les élections municipales. Et cela, nous ne le voulons à aucun prix. Nous voulons que les élections municipales se tiennent à la date annoncée. Madame Speaker, c'est avec plaisir que je dis qu'il faut noter que c'est le commissaire électoral qui a le premier attiré l'attention sur ce problème que nous réglons aujourd'hui. Et la commission électorale, de son côté, est d'accord avec le projet de loi qui est devant nous. C'est donc un grand pas en avant. C'est un signe de respect aussi, un grand coup de chapeau, un signe de respect aux jeunes. Même s'il n'y avait que deux ou un, le symbole est très fort. Nous faisons cet effort, nous passons un petit peu outre à la pratique démocratique normale par respect pour les jeunes. Parce que nous ne voulons pas qu'un seul jeune ayant eu 18 ans ne puisse pas voter s'il le désire ou se porter candidat aux prochaines élections municipales, Madame Speaker. C'est quelque chose de formidable que nous réalisons aujourd'hui. Mais c'est notre devoir que nous remplissons vis-à-vis des jeunes une fois de plus. Une fois que nous aurons fait cela, Madame Speaker, le same day voting pour les élections du 4 mai et pour les prochaines élections générales, nous le souhaitons tous, cela se fera une fois tous les problèmes pratiques réglés. De plus, il est à noter que la commission électorale a demandé au gouvernement d'examiner la possibilité que nous allons faire, mais d'examiner la possibilité d'amender la loi pour que la diaspora mauricienne, les Mauritian expatriates, puissent voter par proxy. Ce n'est pas chose facile à faire, et peut-être que d'autres moyens de donner le droit de vote à la diaspora existent. Nous allons nous pencher là-dessus et faire porter une attention particulière à ce que donc la commission électorale nous a demandé d'examiner, mais nous profitons aussi pour féliciter encore une fois le commissaire électoral et son équipe pour les idées qu'ils nous donnent et pour le travail qu'ils font et pour le service qu'ils rendent au pays, Madame Speaker. Et tout cela, nous le faisons, tout cela, nous le réalisons parce que c'est notre devoir, mais nous le faisons en attendant qu'une bonne réforme électorale avec une dose de proportionnel fasse de notre système électoral une démocratie exemplaire. Madame Speaker, je suis fier ce soir d'être avec tous les députés ici présents pour franchir encore un pas en avant sur le chemin de la démocratie et surtout quand nous le faisons tous ensemble au nom de notre jeunesse. Merci, Madame Speaker.
Yes, Honorable Prime Minister.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. It is clear there is consensus in the House. There's a positive response in the public, also I see on the media. The Deputy Prime Minister is absolutely right. This was an urgent matter, because otherwise many young people would not have been able to vote if we want to maintain the date we decided on. But who could really be opposed to giving the people in towns their right to choose their municipal councillors after 10 years. Who could be opposed? Who could be opposed to, as Honorable Ashok Subban rightly said, we are widening the franchise. This is the word he used. Who could be opposed to that? I must also thank Honorable Rezautim, because he pointed out about the narrowness in several constituencies of the votes. I must tell you, Madam Speaker, in constituency number 10 in 2019, I lost by some 632 or 38 votes. But there were more than 1,000 people who actually did not manage to vote in that constituency. That gives you an idea. Some complained, some did not complain. They protested on the media, on the radio, they protested, but they didn't go and complain officially. This is what we have seen. And so it's important. Every vote is important. I thank him for having pointed this out. Honorable Juval was at pains to say he agrees, but. It's always the same. He agrees, but. On ne gouverne pas avec des mais. His confusion about the Commonwealth citizen being allowed to vote in municipal was incredible. I think the Attorney General response was, it stunned him. It was a deadly response. He said, Honorable Juval is factually and legally plainly wrong. It is not the case. As for the question of online registration, which was canvassed, allowing expatriates to vote, allowing the diaspora to vote, this was canvassed also before the last elections, and I'm glad the Electoral Commissioner has taken it up again. There are difficulties in this. We are aware that there are difficulties, but we will examine this further with the Electoral Commissioner and the ESC, because all difficulties, we must be able to overcome them. They have overcome them in other countries. We should be able to overcome them. The last point was about preserving anonymity. If you count on the same day, if you don't move the ballot boxes, you are likely to know which region has voted for whom. But I was just now saying to the Deputy Prime Minister, those who are sur le terrain, they know. I knew. In 91, I knew who the area who voted for me, who didn't actually vote for me. But it is important that we preserve anonymity. The vote must remain secret. We will do everything for it to remain secret. Madam Speaker, with these few words, I commend the bill to the House.
Thank you. Motion needs to be seconded. You're seconding the bill? Second reading, you're seconding the second. The question is that the representation of the People Amendment Bill number 4 of 2025 be read a second time. Those in favour say aye. Aye. Those against say no. The ayes have it.
The Big Bills Committee stage. Clause 1, short title. Clause 2, interpretation. Clause 3, section 2 of Principal Act amended. Clause 4, part 2 of Principal Act amended. Clause 5, new part 2A inserted in Principal Act. Clause 6, schedule to Principal Act amended.
The question is that clauses 1 to 6 stand part of the bill. Those in favour say aye. Those against say no. Aye. The ayes have it.
Title and enacting clause.
The question is that the title and enacting clause stand part of the bill. Those in favour say aye. Those against say no. The question is that I do report to the House that the representation of the People Amendment Bill number 4 of 2025 has passed the committee stage without amendment. Those in favour say aye, those against say no. C'est pas bon? C'est bon. Honourable members, I have to report to the House that the Representation of the People Amendment Bill number 4 of 2025 has passed the committee stage without amendment.
Public Bills, third reading.
Madam Speaker, I beg to move that the Representation of the People Amendment Bill number 4 of 2025 be read a third time and passed.
The motion needs to be seconded. Secondment. You will then, I am now putting the question. Question is that the Representation of the People Amendment Bill number 4 of 2025 be read the third time and passed. Those in favour say aye. Aye. Those against say no. The ayes have it. I suspend? Yes. I suspend the sitting for 1 hour. Is that all right?